everyone. I'd want to tell you about my personal story today. We were married for 6 years. I am 47 years old, and my wife is 46 years old. I have always been bold, self-assured, and demanding, and my wife adored me for my personality. I was the happiest and proudest husband in the world until I discovered that my wife had been cheating on me. Her aunt was my neighbor. And one day she came over to visit her aunt while I was helping her aunt fix her TV. That's how I met her. I got her number the first day we met and called her later that night. We spoke for a few months before getting married, and my wife admired my confidence because I proposed to her immediately. I am a tall, attractive man who makes a good living. Prior to getting married, however, I never paid much attention to women. For example, I had several one-night stands with women but never gave them much thought. However, my wife was different. She was impressed by me, so I chose her to be my wife. Over the course of our 6 years of marriage, my wife was always a sweet and submissive woman. I asked her to take on the role of stay-at-home wife because I was making a good living, and she gladly agreed. She would cook me the tastiest meals, do my laundry and dishes, and let me take the lead in the bedroom. I had always been the dominant one in our marriage, and my wife was a beautiful woman. I would ask her to get ready and wear bold outfits before going out anywhere, and if other guys turned their heads to her, I felt proud and envious and would fight with them. I had acquired my wife's trust by continually protecting her, which really gave me an adrenaline rush. My friends referred to me as lucky for having such an obedient wife. Men adore a woman who submits, even though they claim not to. I was thrilled and proud of my ability to dominate her, so in exchange, I would provide for all of her needs, even paying her parents' rent. My wife was extremely appreciative of my generosity and would publicly thank me for it. She used to call me the dream man. She would take care of me, give me body massages when I felt tired, and would cater to my every request. We both never wanted children so that we could live our lives to the fullest and be happy. Whenever my friends visited our home, they would try to seduce my wife, but she would refuse even before I intervened. I was proud that her loyalty only belonged to me. She was a Christian woman who was even more conservative than I was, so I was glad that she just had my interests in mind. One day her sister Jen introduced us to her fiancé named Will. My sister-in-law and my wife were chatting, and I was sitting with Will, who seemed to be a weak guy. I warned him that if he maintained his awakened man attitude, he would have to serve his wife all life. He laughed and said, "I can't be like you. I don't have these attributes." Will always respected me and treated me well, so we were happy about his marriage to my sister-in-law. My wife and I began planning their wedding, making the best clothes, and I purchased everything my wife wanted. She was going to stay at her parents' house for a week for her sister's wedding, and I was offered to go with her, but I wasn't the type of man who would want to stay at his in-laws' house. I declined, but she refrigerated the food for me so I wouldn't have to order from outside. My wife took my permission before going, and she asked me to attend the wedding, and when I showed up on the wedding day of my sister-in-law Jen, I thought my wife looked stunning in her light yellow dress. She greeted everyone and served me drinks and wedding food, while Will was serving his wife and feeding her with his hands. I felt embarrassed by him and decided to have a man-to-man talk with him. Will continued to spoil his wife. When my wife told me how nicely Will had treated her sister, I warned her to shut up and pointed out how weak and lacking in self-respect Will was. My wife nodded, but I could tell she was impressed by him. I didn't want to elevate a man like Will, so I avoided bringing up the subject during our discussion. After the wedding, we returned to our city and went about our daily lives. My wife joined the church and recommitted herself to me and our home. A week later, we decided to throw a party for the newlyweds, Will and my sister-in-law Jen. When they arrived at the party, Will was acting as per usual and carrying Jen's bag. At dinner, I sarcastically informed him that he wasn't a man enough. My wife and Jen were shocked but didn't participate in our conversation. Will told me that women should have complete freedom and should be treated like queens. I told him first he needed to behave like a king too, but he was too naive to comprehend it. He nodded and pretended to agree with me. A moment later, when my wife was serving dessert to our guests, Will then began tying my sister-in-law Jen's shoes. I felt bad for Will because I couldn't stand that weak man and made the decision to avoid him as much as possible. Jen and Will were spending the night at our house because they had traveled from another city. Will volunteered to make coffee for all of us after dinner while my wife was doing the dishes. I hated him for spoiling my wife, too. Despite my desire to throw him out, I treated him well. They returned to their city the next day and I didn't invite him back. A year later, Jen was pregnant and invited us to the baby shower and gender reveal party. I had never wanted to go, but Jen was a sweetheart and insisted, so I went. The party went well. They were expecting a baby girl, and Will was occupied serving his wife and acting like a slave because she was pregnant. I didn't bother to pay attention to that loser. After the party, we had planned to spend the night at Jen's house and leave the next morning. My wife made sure I was comfortable during our stay by taking care of my brush, charger, medications, and night clothes. We were at ease in Jen's guest room and fell asleep around 11 p.m. because we were exhausted. I woke up at midnight around 2:30 a.m. to find my wife was not in bed. I assumed she had gone to her sister's room, so I didn't pay attention and went outside to smoke. While outside, I saw movement in Will's car, which was parked outside. I tried to identify who it could have been when I realized it was my wife and Will inside the car. I wanted to shoot both of them. My conservative, obedient wife was having an affair with her brother-in-law while his wife was expecting. I pulled out my phone and started recording them right away. I could see them in the streetlight. Once I had recorded the proof, I ran to catch them outside. I knocked on Will's car. They were frightened when they saw me. It had been my lifelong desire to beat this man, and now he had given me the justification. The man who had claimed to be a woke nice man was having an affair with his wife's sister when she was pregnant. I smacked my cheating wife and agreed to keep it a secret from Jen after they both begged me to stop and said they feared the truth would kill Jen in the morning. My wife and Will pretended as if nothing had happened once they arrived at the dining table with breakfast. I lost control and started shouting and told Jen and my wife's parents everything that had happened. To my surprise, my wife and Will denied all allegations and pretended to be the nicest, innocent people. My wife kept crying and claimed I was lying, unaware that I had recorded the video of their act. I then revealed to Jen and my mother-in-law their true unfaithful faces. I also sent the video of their infidelity to the WhatsApp group, which shocked and disgusted everyone. Jen shouted at them and told them to leave. They kept pleading with me and Jen, but we weren't willing to listen to their bullshit. My in-laws took my side, and my wife and Will had lost all the reputation they had built by serving us. I felt awful for Jen since she was starting a new life while her family had been destroyed by her own sister. I consoled her and then I left for my city and gave my wife the divorce papers. She begged me and claimed she would live like a slave, but who would need an unfaithful slave? When I visited Jen and her baby, she had cut all ties with her sister and had also left Will. My ex-wife had been living in a hostel because she had not only lied to me but also to her family, who aren't ready to accept her. Jen had given birth to a beautiful daughter, but my wife was not allowed to see the face of the child. My friends were shocked to learn what my supposedly perfect wife did. I occasionally missed the services she had provided to me, such as excellent food and clean clothes, but nothing comes before self-respect. And my pride would never permit me to forgive her after what she has done. No matter how much support an unfaithful partner offers, when they tamper with your emotions and trust, married life with them is like living in hell. I have one piece of advice for anyone dealing with betrayal: having your partner betray you can make you angry. Your initial reaction in a fit of rage might be to humiliate your partner in front of friends or consider having an affair yourself to exact revenge. These kinds of activities could provide you with a momentary rush of pleasure, but in the long run, they could be detrimental to your well-being since they prevent you from focusing on your own or your partner's healing and moving on. I appreciate you listening to my story. Thank you for taking the time to listen to my story. Please leave your thoughts and life experiences in the comments. Please remember to subscribe to this channel.